Devon Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker like stars below. At 35 years old, he had built Sterling Innovations from the ground up, transforming it into a technology empire worth billions. Everyone in the business world knew his name, but very few people truly knew him. That was exactly how he preferred it. The reflection in the glass showed a man who looked every bit the powerful CEO he was supposed to be. Tailored suit, perfectly styled dark hair, and eyes that revealed nothing. But Devon knew the truth. Behind the mask of success was someone who had learned the hard way that trust was a dangerous luxury he could no longer afford. 3 years ago, he had been engaged to Victoria Cross, a woman he thought he would spend his life with. She was beautiful, intelligent, and shared his passion for business. They were the golden couple of the corporate world, photographed at every charity gala and business summit. Devon had believed he had found his partner in every sense of the word. He had been wrong. The betrayal that changed everything, the memory still stung like a fresh wound. Devon had returned early from a business trip to surprise Victoria, only to discover she had been working with his biggest competitor to steal his company's secrets. She had been feeding them information for months, slowly dismantling everything he had worked for. The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss could. The woman he loved had seen him only as a stepping stone to her own success. Devon had managed to stop her before she could do irreparable damage. But the experience left scars that no amount of success could heal. He had rebuilt his company stronger than ever, but he had also rebuilt the walls around his heart. No one would get close enough to hurt him again. That resolve had served him well for 3 years. He focused on work, made strategic decisions without emotional interference, and kept every relationship in his life strictly professional. His employees respected him but feared him. His business partners admired him but kept their distance. Even James Mitchell, his CFO and closest friend, knew there were parts of Devon that remained locked away. The woman who sparked something. Knew everything began to shift 6 months ago when Sienna Hayes joined Sterling Innovations as the new marketing director. Devon had barely noticed her at first. She was just another employee, another name on the organizational chart. But slowly, without him even realizing it, she started to break through the carefully constructed barriers he had built. Sienna was different from anyone he had worked with before. She had a warmth about her that seemed genuine, not calculated. When she smiled, it reached her eyes. When she spoke in meetings, she spoke with passion about ideas rather than politics. She treated everyone from the janitor to the board members with the same respect and kindness. What struck Devon most was that Sienna never seemed intimidated by him. While others trembled when he entered a room, she would greet him with a simple good morning and continue with her work. She challenged his ideas in meetings, not with arrogance, but with thoughtful alternatives. She made him laugh during tense negotiations with her quick wit and honest observations. The project that brought them together 2 months ago. Devon had personally assigned Sienna to lead the marketing campaign for their biggest product launch of the year. It was a test, though he would never admit it. He wanted to see if her creativity and optimism could hold up under real pressure. She had exceeded every expectation. Her campaign was brilliant, innovative, and had already generated buzz in the industry before the product even launched. But more than that, working closely with her on the project had given Devon glimpses of who she really was. He learned that she had grown up in a small town, the daughter of 2 teachers who had instilled in her a strong work ethic and genuine compassion for others. She had worked her way through college, taking on multiple jobs to pay for her education. She had faced her own share of heartbreak and disappointment, but somehow it had not made her bitter or cynical. During late-night strategy sessions, when it was just the 2 of them reviewing campaign materials, Devon found himself actually talking to her. Not about business strategies or market shares, but about real things. She told him about her dream of one day starting a foundation to help underprivileged students get access to education. He found himself sharing stories about his early days building the company, struggles he had never discussed with anyone else, the growing feelings, tried to ignore, even had tried to convince himself that what he felt was simply professional admiration. Sienna was an excellent employee, and it made sense that he would appreciate her contributions to the company. But late at night, Alone in his apartment, he could not lie to himself. He thought about her constantly. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The sound of her laugh during team meetings. The genuine concern in her eyes when she asked how he was doing. The way she looked at the world with hope instead of suspicion. It terrified him. These feelings represented everything he had sworn to avoid. Getting close to someone meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant the possibility of pain. He had learned that lesson once, and he had promised himself he would never put himself in that position again. So Devon did what he did best. He created distance. He started communicating with Sienna only through emails instead of face-to-face meetings. He kept their interactions strictly professional, cutting off any personal conversations before they could start. He assigned other team members to work with her on projects that would have normally required his direct involvement. The approaching company celebration, Sterling Innovations, was preparing for its annual gala, a massive celebration that marked another year of record-breaking success. The event was scheduled for next week, and the entire company was buzzing with excitement. It was the one night of the year when Devon allowed himself to relax slightly. Though even then he maintained his carefully controlled image. James had been trying to convince him to use the gala as an opportunity to lighten up. "You have built an incredible company, Devon. You have everything you could want. When are you going to allow yourself to actually enjoy it? When are you going to let someone in?" Devon had dismissed the conversation, but James's words stayed with him. He knew his friend was right on some level. Success felt hollow when there was no one to share it with. But the fear of betrayal, the memory of Victoria's deception, held him back like chains he could not break. The storm on the horizon, what Devon did not know, was that Victoria, Cross, had been watching his company's success with growing resentment. She had built her own business after their relationship ended, but it paled in comparison to what Sterling Innovations had become. She wanted revenge. She had been waiting for the perfect opportunity. Victoria had learned about the gala and had already begun putting her plan into motion. She knew Devon's weaknesses better than anyone, and she intended to use them against him. She had hired private investigators to dig up anything she could use, and she had been carefully planting seeds of doubt with members of the Sterling Innovations board. But the biggest threat was something Victoria had recently discovered. Through her network of informants, she had learned about Sienna Hayes and the time Devon had been spending with her. Victoria recognized the signs. Despite his attempts to hide it, Devon was developing feelings for this woman, and Victoria knew exactly how to use that information to cause maximum damage. As the gala approached, 3 lives were on a collision course. Devon continued to fight his growing feelings, convinced that keeping his distance was the only way to protect himself. Sienna remained unaware of the depth of Devon's internal struggle, though she could sense something had changed between them. And Victoria prepared to strike, determined to destroy not just Devon's company, but also any chance he had at its happiness. The stage was set for a night that would change everything. Sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves become the very prisons that keep us from living. And sometimes it takes a moment of complete vulnerability to finally break free. The Sterling Innovations annual gala was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, one of the most luxurious venues in the city. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and elegant floral arrangements adorned every table. Guests arrived in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement and celebration. Devon arrived early as he always did. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries with investors, partners, and employees. On the surface, he appeared completely in control, the perfect image of a successful CEO celebrating another triumphant year. But inside, his mind was restless. He had not seen Sienna yet. He found himself scanning the crowd for her more often than he cared to admit. He told himself it was simply because he wanted to acknowledge her excellent work on the recent campaign, nothing more. But his racing heart told a different story. James appeared at his side, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He handed one to Devon with a knowing smile. "Relax, my friend. Tonight is supposed to be fun. Try to remember what that word means." Devon took the glass but did not drink. "I am relaxed. I am simply making sure everything runs smoothly." James laughed. You have been checking the entrance every 30 seconds for the past 10 minutes. I wonder who you are looking for." Before Devon could respond, a ripple of attention moved through the crowd near the entrance. Devon turned and his breath caught in his throat. Sienna had just arrived and she looked absolutely stunning. She wore a deep emerald dress that complemented her warm complexion perfectly. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and there was a natural grace in the way she moved that made it impossible to look away. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and for a moment everything else seemed to fade away. Sienna smiled, a genuine expression of warmth that sent an unexpected jolt through Devon's chest. He found himself walking toward her before his mind could tell him to stop. "A conversation that revealed too much, Sienna," Devon said as he reached her. "You look beautiful tonight." The words came out before he could stop them, more personal than he had intended. She looked surprised but pleased. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. This is an amazing event." "You should be very proud of what you have built, Devon," he corrected her quietly. "Tonight, just call me Devon." Something shifted in her expression, a softness that made his defenses start to crumble. "Okay. Devon?" She tested the name on her lips, and he loved the way it sounded in her voice. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the party surrounding them but somehow distant. Devon wanted to say something more, to tell her how much her presence had affected him over the past months, but the words would not come. Years of guarding his emotions had made vulnerability feel impossible. Rachel Kim, Sienna's best friend, appeared beside them with a bright smile. "There you are, Sienna. Come on, they're about to start serving dinner." She glanced between them with barely concealed curiosity before pulling Sienna away. Devon watched them go, feeling an unexpected sense of loss. James reappeared at his side with a low whistle. "Well, that was interesting. I have never seen you look at anyone like that." "I do not know what you are talking about," Devon said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Sure you do not." James replied with a grin. "Listen, Devon, I have known you for 15 years. I saw what Victoria did to you, and I understand why you built those walls. But Sienna is not Victoria. Sometimes you have to take a risk if you want something real." The champagne starts flowing as the evening progressed. Devon found himself drinking more champagne than he normally would. He was not trying to get drunk, but the alcohol helped quiet the constant battle in his mind between what he wanted and what he thought was safe. He delivered his annual speech to the company, thanking everyone for their hard work and dedication. His words were polished and professional, exactly what was expected of him. But when his gaze drifted to Sienna in the crowd, he felt a pang of frustration at the distance between who he was and who he wished he could be. After the speech, the music started, and couples moved onto the dance floor. Devon retreated to a quieter corner of the ballroom, nursing another glass of champagne and watching the celebration from a distance. This was how he always experienced these events. Present, but separate. Successful, but alone. He did not notice Victoria Cross entering the ballroom through a side entrance. Her eyes fixed on him with cold determination. An unexpected dance. Sienna found Devon in his corner retreat about an hour later. Rachel had convinced her to go talk to him, insisting that life was too short to ignore obvious connections. Sienna had been hesitant, knowing that Devon had been keeping his distance from her for weeks. But something about tonight felt different. "You are hiding," she said simply as she approached him. Devon looked up, surprised by her directness. "I am observing." "You are hiding," she repeated with a small smile. The great Devon Sterling, afraid of his own party, the champagne had lowered his defenses enough that he smiled back. "Maybe you are right. I have never been good at celebrations. I prefer the work to the rewards." Sienna studied him for a moment, seeing something in his expression that made her heart ache. That sounds like a lonely way to live. Her words hit him harder than she could know. "It is safer," he admitted quietly. Before Sienna could respond, the music changed to a slow, romantic melody. Devon found himself setting down his glass and extending his hand to her. "Dance with me." Sienna looked surprised, but placed her hand in his. As they moved onto the dance floor, Devon felt the warmth of her body close to his, and something inside him began to break loose. The confession builds. They swayed together in silence for a few moments, the rest of the world fading into the background. Devon was acutely aware of every point of contact between them. Her hand in his palm on the small of her back, the soft scent of her perfume. "You have been avoiding me," Sienna said softly, her eyes searching his face. Devon wanted to deny it, but the champagne and her closeness made lying impossible. "I have why?" "Because you scare me," he admitted, the words coming out before he could stop them. "You make me feel things I swore I would never feel again." Sienna's expression softened with understanding. "Someone hurt you badly?" Devon nodded, his jaw tight. "My ex-fiancée? She betrayed me in ways I never saw coming. She made me believe we had something real while she was using me to advance her own agenda. I am sorry that happened to you," Sienna said gently. "But Devon, not everyone is like her. Some people are exactly who they appear to be." "How do you know?" "How can anyone really know?" Sienna looked directly into his eyes. "You cannot know with absolute certainty. That is what trust is. That is what love is. Taking a chance on someone even though they could hurt you. Believing that the possibility of something real is worth the risk." Her words struck him like a lightning bolt. He suddenly saw himself clearly. For 3 years he had been so focused on protecting himself from pain that he had locked out any chance of happiness. He had built a fortress around his heart, but it had become a prison. The moment of truth, the song ended, but Devon did not let go of her hand. The champagne had stripped away his carefully constructed control, and everything he had been holding back for months came rushing to the surface. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I have been fighting it, trying to convince myself it was not real. But I cannot do it anymore." Sienna's eyes widened slightly, but she did not pull away. "Tell me." Devon took a deep breath, feeling like he was standing at the edge of a cliff. "From the moment you walked into my company, you have been turning my world upside down. I have tried to keep my distance because I was terrified of getting hurt again. But the truth is, staying away from you hurts worse than any risk ever could. Devon." She whispered. "I think about you constantly," he continued, the words pouring out now that he had started. "The way you see good in everyone. The way you light up a room just by walking into it. The way you make me want to be more than just a successful businessman. You make me want to be someone capable of connection, of trust, of love." Tears glistened in Sienna's eyes. "I think about you too. I have been so confused by the way you kept pushing me away when I felt such a strong connection between us." Devon cupped her face gently in his hands. "I was a fool. I let fear control me instead of hope. But standing here with you now, I realize that I would rather risk everything for a chance at something real with you than spend the rest of my life safe and alone." The kiss. That changed everything. Sienna smiled through her tears. "Then stop being afraid and kiss me." Devon did not need to be told twice. He leaned in and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that felt like coming home. All the walls he had built, all the defenses he had maintained, crumbled in that moment. This was what he had been missing. This connection, this vulnerability, this feeling of being truly seen and accepted. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Devon rested his forehead against hers. "I am still terrified," he admitted with a shaky laugh. "Good," Sienna said softly. "That means it matters. That means it is real." They stood there together, holding each other as the party continued around them. For the first time in 3 years, Devon felt something other than emptiness. He felt hope, but they were not alone in their moment. From across the ballroom, Victoria Cross watched the scene with cold fury. She had arrived planning to cause trouble for Devon's company. Seeing him happy with someone else ignited a deeper anger. She pulled out her phone and made a call, setting in motion a plan that would test Devon and Sienna's newfound connection to its limits. James Mitchell also watched from a distance, but with a completely different emotion. He saw the transformation in his friend's face and felt genuine happiness. Devon deserved this. He deserved a chance at love with someone who saw him for who he truly was. Rachel Kim grabbed James's arm excitedly. "Did you see that? They finally admitted their feelings." James smiled. "Now we just have to hope they are strong enough to weather whatever comes next. Because in the world of high-stakes business and complicated pasts, A happy ending was never guaranteed. But for tonight, in this moment, Devon and Sienna had found something worth fighting for. They had found each other. Devon woke up the next morning with a slight headache from the champagne but a surprising lightness in his chest. The gala felt like a dream, except for one very real detail. He had confessed his feelings to Sienna Hayes. She had kissed him back. He reached for his phone on the nightstand and saw a text message from her, sent just 20 minutes ago. "Good morning. Last night was not just the champagne talking for me. I hope it was not for you either. Coffee today?" Devon smiled, something he rarely did before his morning coffee. He quickly typed back, "It was not the champagne. Coffee sounds perfect. My office at noon?" Her response came immediately. "I will be there." As Devon got ready for the day, he felt different. The constant weight of isolation that he had carried for 3 years felt lighter. He had taken the risk that James kept telling him to take, and instead of disaster, he had found something that felt like possibility. But as he drove to the office, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered warnings. What if he was making a mistake? What if Sienna turned out to be like Victoria? What if letting someone close again only led to more pain? Devon shook his head, pushing the doubts away. He had made his choice last night, and he was going to see it through. Sienna was not Victoria. She had given him no reason to doubt her sincerity. He needed to learn to trust again, even if it felt uncomfortable. The storm gathering, what Devon did not know, was that Victoria had been busy since the gala ended. She had spent the early morning hours making calls and pulling strings with the few board members who still had connections to her. Her plan was simple but devastating. She would use her knowledge of Devon's growing feelings for Sienna to create a scandal that would damage both his reputation and his company Victoria had discovered through her. The network of informants that Sienna had once worked, briefly for a consulting firm that had ties to one of Sterling Innovation's competitors. The connection was completely innocent. Sienna had left that firm years before joining Devon's company, and there had never been any conflict of interest. But Victoria knew that with the right spin, innocent facts could be twisted into damaging narratives. She composed an anonymous email to several business journalists and 3 members of the Sterling Innovations board. The email suggested that Devon Sterling had become romantically involved with an employee who had suspicious connections to competitors, raising questions about potential conflicts of interest and compromise. Company security. Victoria knew the story was baseless. But she also knew that in the court of public opinion and corporate politics, the accusation itself could be enough to cause serious damage. She hit send with a satisfied smile, then sat back to watch the chaos unfold. Coffee and confession. Sienna arrived at Devon's office exactly at noon, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the shop down the street. She'd been nervous all morning, wondering if Devon would regret his champagne-fueled confession. But his text message had eased most of her concerns. Devon stood when she entered, and the warmth in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He had not changed his mind. "Come in," he said, gesturing to the comfortable seating area by the window rather than the formal desk. They sat together on the leather couch. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Sienna broke the silence. "So we should probably talk about what happens now." Devon nodded, setting down his coffee cup. "I want to be honest with you about something. Last night was incredible, but I am also terrified. I have not let anyone close to me in 3 years. I do not know if I remember how to do this." Sienna reached out and took his hand. "I appreciate your honesty. I am a little scared too. I know about your ex-fiancée. Rachel told me some of what happened. I cannot imagine how much that hurt." "It did," Devon admitted. "Victoria made me question everything I thought I knew about trust and love. I became someone I did not particularly like. Cold, distant, unable to connect with anyone on a real level. But you are not that person with me," Sienna said softly. "Last night, I saw who you really are underneath all those defenses. I saw someone kind, vulnerable, and capable of deep feeling. That is the person I want to know better." Devon felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I want that too, but I need you to be patient with me. I may pull back sometimes when things feel too intense. It is not because of you. It is because of old wounds that have not completely healed." "I can be patient," Sienna assured him. But you have to promise me something. Promise me that when you feel yourself pulling back, you will talk to me about it instead of just shutting me out. Communication is the only way this works. Devon squeezed her hand. I promise to try. That is the best I can offer right now. Sienna smiled. That is enough. We will figure this out together. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both feeling like they had crossed an important bridge. Then Devon's phone buzzed with an urgent notification. He glanced at it and frowned. The attack begins it was a text from James. We have a problem. Check your email. Board members are asking questions. Devon opened his laptop, and his expression darkened as he read the anonymous email that had been forwarded to him. Sienna watched the change in his demeanor with growing concern. What is wrong? Devon turned the laptop so she could see the screen. Someone sent this to the board and several journalists. They are implying that our relationship is a conflict of interest and suggesting you might have connections to competitors. Sienna read the email, her face going pale. This is ridiculous. I worked for that consulting firm for 6 months, 3 years ago. There was no overlap with Sterling Innovations. I left long before I ever applied here. I know that, Devon said, his voice tight with anger. This is a smear campaign. Someone is trying to damage both of us. Sienna looked up at him, realization dawning. Victoria, she was at the gala last night. Rachel mentioned seeing her. Devon closed his eyes, frustration washing over him. Of course it is Victoria. She cannot stand to see me happy. She wants revenge, and now she has found a way to hurt both of us at the same time. Standing together, Sienna stood up, pacing across the office. What do we do? This could damage your company. Maybe I should resign before this gets worse. No, Devon said firmly, standing to face her. That is exactly what Victoria wants. She wants to drive us apart and make us doubt each other. I am not going to let that happen. But your company, your reputation, Sienna protested. Devon took both of her hands in his. Listen to me. Last night I told you that I was done letting fear control my decisions. I meant it. Yes, this is bad. Yes, Victoria is going to try to cause problems, but I am not going to sacrifice what we have just because someone wants to create scandal out of nothing. Sienna felt tears prick her eyes. You are sure? Because this could get ugly. I am sure, Devon said. We will face it together. We will provide documentation showing there is no conflict of interest. We will be completely transparent with the board. And we will show Victoria that her attempts to manipulate us will not work. James knocked on the door before entering. The board wants an emergency meeting this afternoon. They want answers about this email. Devon nodded. Fine. Schedule it. Sienna and I will both be there. We have nothing to hide, so we will hide nothing. The board meeting 4 hours later, Devon and Sienna sat in the boardroom, facing 8 members of the Sterling Innovations Board of Directors. The atmosphere was tense, and Sienna could feel her heart pounding. But Devon sat beside her, calm and composed. His presence giving her strength. The board chairman, Robert Morrison, cleared his throat. Mr. Sterling, we have received some concerning information about a potential conflict of interest. Involving you and Ms. Hayes, we need to understand the nature of your relationship and whether it poses any risk to the company. Devon leaned forward, his voice clear and unwavering. Ms. Hayes and I have developed feelings for each other. That is true, and we are not going to hide it. However, any suggestion that this relationship poses a conflict of interest is completely baseless. He pulled up a presentation on the screen. As you can see here, Sienna worked for Morrison Consulting for 6 months, ending her employment 3 years ago. At that time, Morrison had no contracts or connections with any Sterling Innovations competitors. Furthermore, Sienna has passed every background check and security clearance we require. Her work here has been exemplary, and she has access only to information relevant to her role as marketing director, Sienna added. I understand the concern, but I want to be clear about my integrity. I would never do anything to compromise Sterling Innovations or Mr. Sterling's trust. Every aspect of my employment history is documented and verifiable. Robert Morrison studied them both carefully. The email suggested that this relationship might cloud Mr. Sterling's judgment in business decisions. Devon's expression hardened. The only thing clouding anyone's judgment here is the malicious intent behind that anonymous email. I believe it came from Victoria Cross, my former fiancée, who has been trying to damage my company for 3 years. This is not about protecting Sterling innovations. This is about someone trying to manipulate us through fear and innuendo. James spoke up from his seat at the table. I have worked with Devon for 15 years. I have never seen him make a business decision based on personal feelings. His judgment has always been sound. If anything, his ability to connect with his team on a more personal level has only strengthened this company. The board's decision. Board members conferred quietly among themselves for several minutes while Devon and Sienna waited. Finally, Robert Morrison spoke. Mr. Sterling, Ms. Hayes, we appreciate your transparency. Based on the documentation you have provided and the absence of any actual evidence of wrongdoing, we see no conflict of interest. However, we do expect you to maintain professional boundaries at work and to recuse yourself from any personnel decisions. Directly affecting Ms. Hayes going forward? Devon nodded. That is fair and reasonable. Thank you. As they left the boardroom, Sienna felt weak with relief. That was terrifying. You were amazing in there, Devon said, putting a supportive hand on her shoulder. You stood your ground and told the truth. That is all we can do. What happens now with Victoria? Devon's expression turned determined. Now we make sure she cannot do this again. I am going to have our legal team investigate where that email came from. If we can prove Victoria was behind it, we can take action. A new beginning that evening. Devon invited Sienna to his apartment for dinner. It was the first time they had been truly alone together since the gala, and there was a new intimacy between them after facing the board together. Devon cooked pasta, while Sienna sat at the kitchen counter watching him with a smile. I never imagined the great Devon Sterling knew how to cook. There are many things about me you do not know yet, Devon said with a rare grin. I may be a billionaire CEO, but my grandmother made sure I knew how to take care of myself. Tell me about her, Sienna said softly. Devon's expression became tender as he stirred the sauce. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 10. She taught me everything important. How to work hard, how to treat people with respect, how to find joy in simple things. She passed away 5 years ago, and I miss her every day. She sounds wonderful. She would have liked you, Devon said. She always told me that the measure of a person was not what they achieved, but how they treated others. You have that same quality. You see people really see them, and you make them feel valued. Sienna felt her eyes mist with tears. That means a lot coming from you. They ate dinner together, talking and laughing more freely than they ever had before. The crisis with the board had shown them both that their connection was strong enough to withstand external pressures. They had faced a challenge together and come through it united. Later, they sat on Devon's balcony looking out at the city lights. Sienna leaned her head on his shoulder. I know this is still new, and I know we both have things we are working through. But I want you to know that I am committed to this. To us, Devon wrapped his arm around her, feeling a sense of peace he had not experienced in years. So am I. You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. The belief that I can have more than just success. That I can have connection and love and a real life with someone who sees me for who I truly am. You do have that, as Sienna said softly, and I am not going anywhere 6 months later. The next 6 months were not without challenges. Victoria tried 2 more times to create problems for Devon and Sienna, but each attempt failed. The legal team eventually gathered enough evidence to send Victoria a cease and desist order, and she finally backed off. Realizing she had lost, Devon and Sienna's relationship grew stronger with each passing day. Devon learned to open up about his feelings, to trust again, to let someone truly know him. Sienna learned that loving someone meant being patient with their healing process and celebrating. Every small step forward, they kept their relationship professional at work. But everyone in the company could see the change in Devon. He smiled more. He connected with his employees more genuinely. He had become not just a brilliant CEO, but also a compassionate leader. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Devon took Sienna back to the Grand Meridian Hotel, to the same ballroom where the gala had been held. She looked at him with curiosity as they walked into the empty space. "Why are we here?" "Because this is where everything changed," Devon said. "This is where I finally had the courage to tell you the truth. Where I stopped running from my feelings and started running toward something real." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sienna's breath caught in her throat. "I know we have only been together for 6 months," Devon said, his voice thick with emotion. "But when you have spent 3 years in the dark, you recognize light when you see it. You are my light, Sienna. You brought me back to life. You taught me that trust is not weakness, and vulnerability is not danger. You showed me that love is worth the risk." He opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring. "I am not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I am asking you to promise me a future, to say yes to building a life together, to give me the honor of being the man who gets to love you for the rest of his days." Tears streamed down Sienna's face. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Devon slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a kiss that felt like a promise. They stood in that ballroom, holding each other. Two people who had found their way through fear and doubt to something real and lasting. The true Victoria Cross read about Devon and Sienna's engagement in the business section of the newspaper. She felt a flash of anger, but it was quickly replaced by something else: exhaustion. She had spent 3 years trying to hurt Devon, and all she had accomplished was making herself miserable. For the first time, Victoria realized that her desire for revenge had been holding her back from building her own life. While she had been focused on destroying Devon's happiness, he had moved on and found something beautiful. Meanwhile, she was still stuck in the past, bitter and alone. It was a painful realization, but also a necessary one. Victoria finally decided to let go of her vendetta and focus on her own future. She would never be friends with Devon, but she could at least stop actively trying to ruin his life. The happy ending 1 year after the gala. Devon and Sienna stood before their closest friends and family, exchanging vows in an intimate ceremony. James served as best man, and Rachel as maid of honor. The celebration was filled with joy and laughter, a testament to how far they had all come. As Devon and Sienna shared their first dance as husband and wife, he whispered in her ear, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for seeing past the walls I built and believing there was something worth finding." Underneath, Sienna smiled up at him, her eyes shining with love. "Thank you for having the courage to let me in, for choosing hope over fear, for showing me that true love is not about perfection. It is about two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. They swayed together under the stars, surrounded by people who loved them, living proof that sometimes the greatest victories in life come not from protecting ourselves from pain, but from having the courage to be vulnerable." Devon had learned that opening his heart was not a weakness, but the greatest strength of all. And as he held his wife in his arms, looking forward to a future filled with possibility, Devon Sterling finally understood what it meant to truly live, not just to succeed, but to love and be loved in return. That was the real triumph. That was the happy ending he had never thought possible. Their story became a reminder that no matter how broken we feel, no matter how many walls we build, love has the power to heal us. It takes courage to trust again after betrayal. It takes strength to be vulnerable after being hurt. But when we find someone worth fighting for, someone who sees us and loves us anyway, that is when we discover what it means to be truly alive. Devon and Sienna had found that in each other, and their love story was just beginning.